morning, good afternoon, Idaho 97. This is the Idaho 97 podcast. I'm Nathaniel Huffman. I'm here with my Idaho 97 brothers and sisters, Mike Satz, Emily Walton, and Alicia Abbott. And we are kind of done with the Idaho legislature. At least we got a little break. They seem to be mostly done. Want to go over a couple things. It was a tumultuous night. They were there till midnight approximately last night, Friday night, and they voted to come back. Since they don't understand the separation of powers, they voted to stay in session basically so they can monitor Governor Little's possible vetoes. And we want to talk about some good things that happened in the legislature. We're often negative. So it wasn't all bad. It wasn't the worst session ever. And I'm going to turn it over to Alicia to talk about a few items that came out, non-extreme. Alicia, what did you see?
Yeah, we saw a lot of bad bills come across the legislature this year, but we did defeat a lot of them. And so we should all be really excited about the work we did together to make these bills not make it through the process. So we've increased budgets for public schools, which is amazing. Still not enough, but we are moving in the right direction. Higher education budgets were also funded, which is a great change from last year where we cut budgets to higher education. Voter suppression bills, including drop box ban, voter affiliation deadline change, and that draconian voter ID bill have all gone to the wayside. School vouchers / private privatization bill was defeated. Library censorship, but we did see a budget cut for them, specifically in ARPA funding, and trans youth healthcare and family rights. We saw attacks on that this session. We won't be seeing that move forward. And we're hopefully going to wrap up before Tree Fort ends, maybe.
We'll see. So maybe they'll all go to Tree Fort and have a good time and come back not angry and mean. So, right.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Tree Fort is a large music festival that's happening in Boise right now. I was at a concert at the Egyptian Theater last night as the legislature was wrapping and was basically thinking how much better it would be if all of our legislators just kind of went out and saw what real Idahoans were doing on a Friday night in downtown Boise. Might have changed their perspective on what their job is actually.
Yeah, they were not having fun, but now I also understand how you managed to stay awake until the time they ended. I see that, and so these are bills that were beaten, and the Idaho 97 was heavily involved. Those of you who are supporters of the Idaho 97 were heavily involved, but something that I think is important to discuss and to understand and to recognize is there were a lot of groups really heavily involved in dealing with these bills. And from multiple levels, right? Idaho 97, we come in with our followers. That's you, the listeners, who we say, hey, we ask you to contact people and to get the word out, and you do that, and we thank you for that. I mean, it made a difference. It really, really did. And I'll give you a few examples here in a second, but there's other groups out there that are working day in and day out on the same stuff that we're working on, right? There's education groups, there's rights groups, there are just civically engaged groups, there's conservation groups, all kinds of groups are out there. And we even had groups involved in agriculture that were working on some of these bills too. And so this is important. This is important for us to understand that nothing we do happens in a vacuum. But this is also an important message to send to our legislative leaders. This was a wave that came together basically in response to their poor conduct last year. Mostly better this year until the last few weeks. And then they kind of went off the rails. And we'll talk about that in a second. But, and I want you, the followers, to understand how important it is for you to contact your legislators. We put these tools up, and the tools always have an opportunity for you to put your own message in. If you have a really distinct and different message from what we're saying, delete our message and tell your message and just use our tool to reach out. We had one follower who has an elderly father who was a World War II veteran who who just said, I give up on voting because it's too hard. They're making it too hard. He contacted one of the senators, and that meant a lot to that senator. We have another follower who was just terrified for his child and his family because of this trans health care bill. And there's this bill that was focusing on interfering with family rights. And he told his story, and many others told their stories to legislators, some of whom were very conservative and personally don't understand and don't agree with this. But they heard the stories of Idahoans. They read your emails. There's one legislator in particular that I won't give you the name, but I know this legislator stayed up until wee hours of the morning reading emails from you. So that works. But we're all part of this together, right? It's not just us. It's not just anybody. We're all working together. But please, let's keep working together because this is how we're gonna deal with these issues. Now, we had some challenges. I'm sorry. Before I move on, does anyone have anything they want to add to that?
No, that was perfect.
All right. So we had some challenges, particularly towards the end of the session. You know, I note I monitor our social media. I contact a lot of our followers, and I really see that a lot of people are upset and not feeling good. And I think, you know, this group of four here, we had ups and downs. I'll just tell you straight up, this whole team here had to talk this leader off a ledge one day because I was so upset with some things that were going on. And so that's really normal, right? So don't think that you know it's all lost, right? Because we have a bad day. We're going to have bad days, right? We're engaging in politics, and this is going to happen. And you know, but there were some challenges, right? The very last thing that happened last night was a budget cut to the libraries, and it was in response to losing the vote on restricting basically censorship in the libraries and criminalizing our librarians. And in fact, was it Representative Young? Is that who it was who actually said that these librarians that this is in response to the librarians basically coming in and speaking up? And I want our followers to understand something, right? That is vengeful. That is petty. That is really childish, right? That's behavior we don't want to see in our legislature. But this was not aimed at librarians, right? This was aimed at you and me. And this is what we all need to understand and what we need to stand up against, right? This was a signal saying citizens don't come up here. Librarians had every right to go up there and speak to their legislators. If they're going to criminalize you, yeah, pardon my language, but damn straight you can go talk and say that this isn't okay. And so when they say we're going to get you back for doing that, right? They're sending a signal to the citizens of this state that you can't speak, right? And even if we can't legislate it, we'll get you another way, right? And that's not okay, right? And so that's a big challenge, right? Even worse, though, you know, three of us here are Boise based. One of us is based in a rural area. What they cut was services to our rural schools, our rural libraries, right? Those are the people who need it the most. Those are most of these extremists' supporters, right? And so we need to pay attention to this. And if you live in a city, if you live in Boise or Pocatello or Twin Falls, you know, pay attention, right? And we need to come together and help out our fellow Idahoans in rural areas, because that's who they're really hurting, right? Is they're really hurting them. And that's not okay. Now, there's another challenging bill out there. I mean, it's a real hot topic, and I understand it's a hot topic. I mean, it was this bounty bill on women who get abortions. And really, the problem with this bill is, you know, it's not about pro-choice. It's not about pro-life. What it's really about is they are turning Idahoans against one another, right? Where they're turning family members against one another. They're paying bounties to people. A rapist could sue, right? So someone who's criminally assaulted, raped, and severely injured a woman can sue over an abortion. And that's the real dastardly thing here. And you know, I understand if you're pro-choice, yeah, there's more dastardly stuff there too. And I'm not going to argue with you at all. But, you know, this fact that they're turning people against one another is really, it's almost indicative, right? It's projecting from this legislative body in a lot of the legislation that we've seen that's been harmful and trying to hurt people. And so here they're trying to get other people to do it for them, basically. And that's something that we're going to have to address and deal with. I was also extremely extremely disappointed in the governor in this instance. The governor made this wishy-washy statement. It was actually a good statement. It said, "Oh, that I have problems with this being legal, and this is very problematic. Oh, but I'm going to sign it anyway." That's not okay. That's not okay, Governor Little. If you think something's wrong, right, you're in the governor's office to be that third branch of government, to be the executive branch, and to exercise your judgment. Was it veto proof? Quite possibly it was, right? But then that's on them, right? And right now, Governor Little, you're part of this problem because of what you did, and you just let it go, and you're letting the courts deal with it. And that's not the kind of leadership Idahoans need. It's not the kind of leadership Idahoans expect. So there's a lot of disappointment to go around with this bill in particular.
Yeah.
Now y'all see me getting all hot and bothered here. Let me hand this over to Emily, and she's going to give you some self-care tips because we all need it.
Oh, wait, hold on. Can I just say one thing first? I want to address both of those points real quick. One, just a little pushback, Mike. The rural Idahoans that you're referring to that need internet, I mean, they are not necessarily the base for extremists in the legislature. This is our neighbors, and they know they need better internet. Like, sometimes this podcast gets messed up because of the internet up in Alicia's neck of the woods, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that just for a second. I mean, in all reality, Mike made some excellent points about the legislators punishing us. They do this regularly. Yeah. They do this often. We've seen it with our initiative rights. We've seen it when they denied us Medicaid expansion for years. And when we got it, they challenged us in every way possible. And now they're trying to, remove our centers for information, internet. And sometimes, like a big part of the budget that they cut for libraries was for telehealth services in our libraries and information
books,
technology. So
they're trying to take our books away.
Yeah, they're trying to take a lot of things away from us just for pushing back on their narrative. And it's unfair to Idahoans. They are not serving our interests or our needs. And, living in rural Idaho comes along with a news desert. So closing access to more opportunities to our libraries is just the wrong direction for rural Idaho.
Yeah, and let me circle back there. So to the audience, I laugh about this whenever Nate steps in because Nate's kind of my logical and moral compass sometimes, but he's absolutely right? And what I should have said was constituents, right? And that's the correct word. But if y'all think this happens every meeting at least 5 times, so it's all good. Right? This is why we're so awesome. It's really all Nate.
It's all Mike. Definitely all Mike. Okay, the other thing, I just wanted to make a quick comment on this abortion bounty. This is another example where Idaho is being used as a test case nationally for, the next level of attacks on women in this country, really, is what it comes down to. And the interesting thing I'm seeing here, and others can speak better about this, but this is right out of the extremist playbook where you're just taking things to a higher level of conflict between Idahoans, right? This is inserting into law an incentive to, spy on women in your family, to attack them personally, and to turn politics into a conflict. And Idaho's leading the way on that nationally. I mean, everybody's watching this. Don't get, look at the national press that this bill, that Governor Little's signature on this bill has gotten.
We're in the international press because of this too.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to say. Emily, help us out, please.
Yeah. Now we're really wound up. Emily, help us out. Calm us down.
Take it down a notch.
So recently on my Facebook page, up popped a memory. I think it was 10 years ago when I was working in the Idaho legislature. And I ended up helping to kill a guns on campus bill. So this is now, I guess, probably my 11th legislative session dealing with state legislatures in Idaho and outside of Idaho. And I think, watching our social media feed, hearing from a bunch of friends, seeing what's going on, I just have some hard-earned advice. And it's really, I think the first thing is we all need access to mental health care. The things that are happening in this legislature are abusive. People are being extremely nasty. And it does hurt us, right? These things hurt us. It hurts us to see, families with transgender children be terrified. It hurts us to think about, what if I was raped and a family member decided to sue to get money? These things are horrible and scary, and it's very real to have a bad mental health reaction to it. And so if you can get mental health care, I highly recommend it. It's going to help to get through this. And I also want to add, a safe place to vent. Like, we will all sometimes get on the phone or get on a Zoom call like this and just have to vent about how frustrating and awful this is. And I just want to validate those feelings of being upset and scared. It's real. We should be upset and scared. This is awful. And to try to get some mental health care and to find a safe place with friends where you can vent about it is really important. And don't think, we're not succeeding. We're not doing enough work if we feel bad about this. It's natural to be worried and scared about this. And, we're here to support and help that where we can. And yeah, having been through it many years now, I just want to say that to you. So that's all. Also, I'm in my garden. I had a massage this morning, so I'm feeling very zen. So I'm letting my other colleagues handle all of the bill stuff. Thanks, you guys.
I wasn't going to out you, Emily, but Emily has a beautiful backyard garden and has some agricultural roots in her bloodline. And so, go dig some dirt, go do what we do in Idaho, go up and you can drive 10 minutes anywhere you are and be in the woods, and none of this matters up there.
If you need any garden to work in, mine's available all the time. I'm way in over my head, so just let me know.
Same. Okay. Any other healthcare or self-care, so-called self-care tips, Mike or Alicia?
I'll give you some from me, right? I don't keep this secret from people at all. I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and there are times when you need to take care of yourself, right? And it's okay, right? And if people are around you and they're not letting you take care of yourself, those aren't the right people to be around. But it's perfectly okay. We really need to destigmatize these, mental health and things around mental health. I lived most of my adult life avoiding this. And as soon as I started taking care of it, my life got much better. But this happens in the big scale, like what I'm telling you about. Maybe this happens in the small scale too. And just like Emily was saying, sit down and talk to someone, do something that's fun. You really go for a walk, whatever, right? That's what I do. I go for a walk, and I've been enjoying myself watching everything bud and turn green now. And so, don't be ashamed of it at all. These are really natural, normal feelings. This is your brain coping with things. I heard someone say this once, and I don't forget if it was someone here or somewhere else, but they had a therapist that told them, your brain is there for you to survive. It's not there for your happiness. And so you go out and you find something that makes you happy. And we can all find things out there. So.
Awesome. I mean, honestly, for me, this Idaho 97 project conversation, on a big scale, is self-care for me. This is we have found a voice for ourselves and for thousands of Idahoans to push back against what is objectively harmful to our state, harmful politics. And I mean, I know that's not generally thought of as, a mental health solution, but, for me, it certainly is to be able to stay here and have a fight, a fight in the game. What do you call that? Dog in the fight.
I'm going to swing off of that feel-good feeling that you get, Nathaniel, because it's a real thing. Voter-to-voter outreach might seem like a scary, daunting task, but once you do it, then you have some fulfilling interactions. You are hooked. So we really want to encourage you to get plugged in to what you care about, whether that is one of our phone banks, which we have the next 2 months worth of phone banks up on our website, the idaho97.org/phone banks to go get signed up. And, that feeling you get is real, Nathaniel. When we're doing voter to voter contact and we're having meaningful conversations with, right now we're calling unaffiliated voters. We need to get them plugged into primary ballots with candidates. And a lot of these unaffiliated voters are grateful to hear from us because they don't realize they aren't getting to weigh in on candidates with just an unaffiliated primary ballot. So catch that feel-good feeling if you don't know what actions to take against this extremism. The answer is getting more of us to the polls because we know Idaho opposes extremism. Yeah. So get signed up for phone banking. And we do have one more thing to take care of on the legislative side for the moment. I'm going to let Mike talk about.
Yeah, it's the House Bill 782. Look at that. We only gave you one bill number today, but this is the bill changing the Judicial Commission or committee, I think it's commission, to give the governor and the legislature a whole lot more say in picking our judges. There are two sides to this. One side of this is it's the legislature trying to get back at the judiciary for protecting your right to a voter initiative, and they did not like that, and so again we were talking about how they are kind of petty and they play like this. Well, that's a piece of it, right? But another piece of it is we know that there are some very wealthy, powerful, moneyed interests that are interested in this. So we know that there are representatives from some very strong corporations that were part of this, that were sitting in the House committee when this passed through. This was a setup. There was no way we could have stopped it. We kind of knew that beforehand, but we gave it a shot. And what they don't like is the Idaho Supreme Court in particular is actually very citizen friendly. And a lot of the businesses don't like that. They want a more business friendly Supreme Court. And this has been a problem for years. I've been listening to them complain about it for years as an attorney with the university, as a professor with the university. I mean, as long as I've been here, they've been complaining about it. You and I, we want that. Right. We want a balanced Supreme Court. We want a Supreme Court that balances out this extremism in the legislature and a Supreme Court that stands up for citizens against powerful moneyed interests. And that's what they're trying to get rid of. So this bill passed both the House and the Senate, and it's on the governor's desk. We suspect the reason they adjourned until Thursday was to give the timeline for the governor to veto the time to run out. But we need you to email the governor. And we have an email tool up now. You can go to our website or our social media. We're on Facebook and we're on Twitter, and the information will be there. Make sure it'll be pinned up on top in both of those locations. And our website is the idaho97.org. And you can go there and let's do it again. Even if you send them before, send it again. We need to tell the governor, we need to give the governor the backing he needs to veto this bill. And, they may override it, but then that's on them. Right. And it's not on the governor. And we've done everything we could do to protect our democracy on this one.
Yeah. And I mean, and you can go and read about it on the website, but in essence, this is, protecting judges in Idaho from political interference. That's the gist of it.
Protecting our judiciary from being politicized.
Yeah, I let this slide, but that was such a smooth transition into the second segment of the podcast, our action segment. And I let it slide because we were talking about mental health, and taking action is another thing you can do to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your people. So thank you for that segue, Alicia. We're going to jump right into the third segment, and my favorite, my far right nut.
Yeah. Yo, let's get stupid, y'all. Yo, homeboy, you seen him? See fool. My nuts, man. Who you think?
Alicia Abbott, who is this week's far right nut?
This week's far right nut is Representative Chad Christensen of District 32. He was born in Idaho Falls and loves baseball. He graduated from Ricks College in Rexburg with a criminal justice degree and Idaho State University in Pocatello with a political science degree. He was a parole officer for 8 years and is an Army veteran. Chad claims to be a devout Latter-day Saint, but I personally classify Chad FLDS, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Currently, Chad resides in Ammon, Idaho, and is working for State Farm Insurance. State Farm, if you're listening, we need to talk. Representative Chad Christensen openly boasts his affiliation with the conspiracy theorists at the John Birch Society and the anti-government paramilitary folks at the Oath Keepers, which brings
Alicia,
us full circle.
He's got those on his bio on the Idaho State Legislative website, right?
Yes, most of this information is right on the Idaho legislative bio he has. You can go to legislature.idaho.gov and find information about a whole bunch of legislators, but Chad's pretty open about his personal life and activities and what he does. But, all of his activity with these paramilitary groups and conspiracy theory groups brings us full circle to FLDS, or Fundamentalist Latter-day Saint. And it's an extremely far-right ideology within the Mormon faith. As always, we recommend you go listen to Bundyville, wherever you listen to your podcasts, for a deep dive on that. And his nickname in the legislature is Mad Chad. And I'm going to tell you guys a little story about this nickname. A few years back, there was some legislation up regarding feminine hygiene products in, I believe it was, higher education bathrooms.
Boise State in particular.
At Boise State, yes. And Representative Chad Christensen was very upset about these sanitary napkins being funded by taxpayers. And so Idahoans sent him a whole bunch of maxi pads. And for, I'd say, a good 5 days, this campaign was referred to as Pads for Mad Chad. And it was a very comical event, and he used those pads for a good cause. And that's how he got his nickname of Mad Chad. And last but not least, Chad votes with the Dark Money Caucus, the IFF, John Birch Society, and others. So that's Chad.
Could step in there real quick. I guess I'll just pick it up here. But I remember that I was working for the University of Idaho at the time, and he walked into a bathroom, a women's bathroom, I believe, and he saw these products, and I think it was him. I think he was a legislator, and he made this huge deal about feminine hygiene products being that we shouldn't fund those, as if women aren't half our population, right? But yeah, he made such a big deal. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But I will say the man has gone much more ridiculous since then. And we follow him in particular. He's one of the more dangerous, actually dangerous legislators there in that he constantly alludes to violence. He constantly alludes to armed conflict and stepping up in kind of this revolutionary kind of way. And one thing that a lot of the other ones, I don't want to discount their violence, because they are empowering. They empower forces of hate. They empower bigotry. They empower different people who are associated with and affiliated with these kind of groups. But the difference is Mad Chad actually just goes straight to guns, right? Get your gun, and I'm carrying, and that kind of thing. In fact, he's had his account on Facebook suspended several times for violating their standards, their community standards. And so I think that this is really important to understand about, is that he's constantly talking about how tough he is and how we all ought to go do something and all that kind of stuff. I'll give you a little bit more background about me. I don't talk about this stuff much, but I'm a veteran. I have been fighting and training and fighting for 40 years now. I actually counted up. I actually owned a martial arts school, Krav Maga school, hand-to-hand combat and all that kind of stuff. And I will tell you, right, the weakest people are the ones that talk the most about how good they are at fighting. Now, that's a fact. And you could talk to anyone who's involved in martial anything, and they'll tell you the same thing. And so I do giggle a little bit when I see that, but unfortunately, a lot of people believe him. Right. A lot of people believe what he's saying, and they listen to him. And that's a real danger. Right. And that is really the heart of extremism in the legislature is someone running around talking about how he's carrying a gun. He's always carrying a gun, and we need to take guns and take revolutionary action. Something else that's very interesting that recently developed with Chad is he was countersued by Greg Graff. So Chad Christensen set up this ridiculous sting operation with Greg Graff to try to get him and to defame him with his boss, who also works for State Farm Insurance, by the way, State Farm Insurance. And they got him. It seems like they entrapped him to say some things like that. And so then Chad sued. Chad sued him, and we don't know, right? We don't know what the outcome of the case is going to be. We don't know what the ultimate merits of the court will find. But Greg Graff countersued him, and included in that countersuit is Greg Pruitt of the Second Amendment Foundation, and then I don't know, gazillion websites and Facebook pages he uses to astroturf and trick people. But then also Dustin Hurst of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. And basically, this is a group, it's kind of what I call a defamation network. They all work together, right? If you follow them, and then you also try to see, whose websites this guy Parrish Miller is working on, who used to work for the Freedom Foundation. Now he's a contractor for the Freedom Foundation. I think he's still a contractor for Lieutenant Governor McGeehan, and I think that he actually has a lot to do with a lot of these people's websites, right? All these people are interconnected, right? They all talk to each other. They're all buddies, and they come up with these stories about people, and then they all spread them around on all these different places and things like that. And so what Greg Graff did is he said, no, you're defaming me. And not only that, you're using these people to do that. So he countersued them as well. Not Parrish Miller, but he did include Dustin Hurst, and he did include Greg Pruitt in that. And this is going to be very interesting to watch play out, because they can't play their games. I think most of you know I'm an attorney, and I tell them all the time, hey, if I'm not telling the truth, sue me, right? They don't sue me, right? Because I know I'm telling the truth. I know what's out there, right? But they play this game where they go out and tell all these stories about people that are untruthful, and they make up things. I mean, this is the brain trust that made up the story about CRT. How much money have we wasted in our state hunting for something that doesn't even exist? It's this group, right? It's this group of people that work that up. And so now Greg is countersuing them, and we're going to have the opportunity to hopefully find out more about this network through the courts. And they can't avoid that, right? They're going to try, believe me, they're going to try, but they can't really avoid that, because this will show a pattern in practice of what they have. And that is going to be relevant to this court case. And so we are looking forward to seeing that. And I'll tell you a little bit about this man, Greg Graff. I first met Greg when I started getting involved with the Idaho 97. Turns out Greg's a Republican, he's a lifelong Republican, and he's been spending years trying to fight this extremism within the Republican Party. And that's why they don't like him. Right, that's why they're going after him, and that's why they do the things they do. Greg believes they were trying to get him fired from his job, right? And we've seen that. I mean, I've been a victim of one of Dustin Hurst's public records requests to try to make things more difficult for me at work, right? Because I stood up to him and basically said, "Stop being a racist, you guys. This is some racist stuff that you're pushing, whether people know it or not. It is," and he didn't like it, and so he did a public records request to punish me. He's trying to do the same thing in the private sector with Greg. Well, Greg left that employer, and Greg is now free to do what he wants to do. And so now he's fighting back. So this is something to watch. And, if you are active on Twitter, I'd say follow Greg Graff. He's a good guy to follow. He's one of the founders of Idaho Conservatives, which was in place before we were in place, trying to do what we're doing, but we're doing it from outside rather than from inside, right? But those are both good accounts to follow and keep track on what's going on with this case.
Any other thoughts on Chad? I mean,
Emily's in her Zen moment. She's not going to mess that up by talking about Matt Chad.
I mean, I'm just glad he's not my legislator. That's all I want to say. I'm a little unsure about this comparison, but the MaxiPad story and all this talk about, quote unquote pornography at the legislature, I'm just thinking, like, the expression, like, porn when you see it, like there's no definition really. I'm being very careful here because I'm not confident in this, but they don't know it. The extremist legislators in our state lead some kind of like weird sheltered life. But I also, on the other hand, I think maybe they're watching porn all the time on their legislative computer. So I don't know which way it is, but it has nothing to do with public libraries in this state. And so, just the fact that they punish, and this is part of this segment, because Chad is part of this voting block, obviously, that they're punishing libraries with federal, COVID recovery funds that come from the federal government that are coming to Idaho for the benefit of rural communities. They're punishing libraries based on some like fictional imagined definition of pornography. Like it makes no sense whatsoever. Chad needs to like talk to his daughters about, feminine hygiene products, and these legislators need a lesson on like the human body or something. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, right? I mean, there are some books that are out there, right? But they're in they're in the adult section, right, where children aren't supposed to be. And we've been through this over and over again in constitutional First Amendment litigation, talking about what we can and can't restrict from libraries, right? And there's a great case out there that talks about how you can't tell a library that you can't keep patrons from going on the internet and looking at porn. Right. I mean, that's just the way it is. And this is what freedom, we've said this in this podcast before. Freedom cuts both ways. And there's some things that you like, there's some things that you don't like. But it's important to understand that the concept of freedom, that is the important concept that we, and freedom of speech, that's the important concept that we need to be supportive of. I thought you were going to go somewhere else, because I sure find it weird that all these super conservative, super religious people, man, they want to jump right in on all of this hinky stuff, right? And they have no problem jumping in on this kind of stuff. And man, wait till they hear about the internet and learn what kids can see on that, because what they're accusing the libraries of doing is awfully tame compared to what kids can find on the internet. And again, all the things that they claim are porn are in these sections that are monitored, that are for adults only, and adults have the right to go to the library too. And so, but they're also stories. I mean, it's literature. It's not like, Hustler that we're talking about here. And so,
yeah, I mean, even if it was Hustler, like it's people's freedom to look at Hustler. I think there's two things going on here. One is it's very creepy that they're obsessed with this stuff, the anti-maxi pad thing, what if kids are looking at a book that they're not actually looking at? It's just very creepy and strange. Like, get a freaking life. Yeah. And then the other part of it is it's really none of their business. I mean, when I went to the library in Burley, Idaho as a child with my mother, she told me which sections I could go get books from. And when I graduated to the adult section, she would look them over and it was fine. Families are handling this stuff fine. Mm-hmm. And this is legislators just finding a reason to attack something because they just need to get a life. And it's embarrassing. Like, what in the world?
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
On that note, Rep. Chad Christensen is being challenged in his Republican primary in District 35. So you can also look up information for Josh Wheeler, who is also from Ammon. He'll be challenging Chad Christensen in the GOP primary on May 17th.
If you are in District 35 and you want to have a choice in your election on May 17th, you need to register as a Republican and vote. You got to vote. This has been another episode of the Idaho 97 podcast with Mike Satz, Emily Walton, Alicia Abbott, and myself, Nate Hoffman. And we hope you all have a great week. There will not be very much legislative news this coming week, which is a great relief to a lot of us. And see y'all next week. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Bye, everyone.
Adios.